The first piece is clearly define what needs to be done. So this is a great foundational piece because sometimes we make assumptions that our child knows what needs to be done or how to do it. And so having a conversation with them before an expectation is set is a really important piece. So clearly describing to them, this is what I need you to do, having them repeat it back to you, and then talking about how they're going to do it, making a plan for that helps to set them up for being really clear about the expectation. The second has to do with motivation. So talking about intrinsic motivation is important because it's much more powerful than any extrinsic motivator that you might provide for your child, any incentive. We want, ideally, them to be motivated from within because it feels great to have a goal and to accomplish it, or to be asked to do something and then to complete it. So just because your child is smart, intelligent, does well in school, doesn't mean that they're necessarily motivated to do the work or to do something that is actually really challenging, or to attempt something that they're not sure they can be successful at. So again, motivation is not correlated with intelligence. So it's important to meet your child where they're at and set them up to be successful. The first step in doing that is making sure that the task you're asking them to do or the expectation you have is within their ability to complete.
We'll talk about the different parts and pieces of the process. So the initial referral. So a student is suspected of having a disability, and they are then referred to the Committee on Special Education. That's where the evaluation process begins. We'll talk about that a little bit more in detail. So the Committee on Special Education then begins the process to evaluate the student. That information is gathered during the evaluation process, and the evaluation results are then reviewed at a CSE meeting where the CSE, remember, parents are a member of that CSE, Committee on Special Education Committee, to determine if the student is eligible to receive special education services. A student who is eligible will receive an IEP, and that is based on the evaluation and testing to meet their needs. Again, an IEP, because it's an individualized plan, the plan within the IEP is based on all of the different parts and pieces of the evaluation and student testing. And again, services must be provided in the least restrictive environment. So we start, we may start providing service in a general classroom, and as a student's needs, if that student is not progressing in the least restrictive environment, then we meet again and we might talk about moving to a more restrictive environment.
Anxiety is really an interaction, sort of if you think it's like a cyclical relationship between thoughts and physical reactions to those thoughts or feelings. So what I want to do is start by picking apart some of the thoughts that are common for people with anxiety. So there are 6 main lies that anxiety tells. So because it's a disorder, it's based on false thinking. And so these are some of the examples. The first one is catastrophic thinking. So I'll never be able to do this right, or this person must think I'm stupid. I'm never going to make the team. It's consistently thinking that the worst will happen. It's like you skip right to the worst case scenario. Okay, so that's one type of lie. The second comes from overwhelm, and it's, I can't handle this. I'll never be able to do it. I can't handle it. And that kind of leads to avoidance or shutdown. But it's a real lack of resilience for when challenges come up. The third lie is, I am my worry. So if you remember with the generalized anxiety disorder, I talked about how the worry is kind of about a lot of different things. It's really always present to some degree. And so a kid who has that might start to over-identify with that anxiety and with those worries and start to feel like, I am my worry, or, that's just me. That's just how I am. I just worry about things. And so that becomes their identity. The fourth lie is, I need to get rid of bad feelings. Sometimes we are so uncomfortable with the anxious feelings or the fears that come up that we will do anything to push them down or avoid getting them. And so that's where you see a lot of numbing with drugs and alcohol, food, video games, or avoidance of things that cause them anxiety. The fifth lie is, my worth comes from outside of myself. And this is really perfectionism for the kids who are overachievers, people who work extra hard to do, a perfect job, or they keep going back and checking and rechecking their work. That can be due to the thought that I'm being judged on my output, on how good of a job I do, and that determines my value. And the last lie is that I'm disconnected from my inner voice. So people who are very in their heads and very concerned about, overthinking what people think about them and trying to overperform, they can become very disconnected from their intuition or those gut feelings that we have that kind of guide us in life. And so when someone starts to feel disconnected from that inner guidance, it leaves you feeling kind of untethered and just like you're kind of spinning in an ungrounded way, and it can lead to even more anxiety.
Here's some sentence starters. So, what is the hardest thing about being a teenager? Or what is the hardest thing about being you right now? That can be a sentence starter at one of those routines, right? That could be something at the dinner table where we all answer at the dinner table. Like, what's the hardest thing about being me right now? I might model that for the kids or for my teenagers or for everybody else at my table. Like, the hardest thing about being me right now is the fact that I've got 3 jobs and I'm, pulled in different directions, and I really want to be home spending time with you guys and making great dinner. So the hardest thing about me right now is that I'm pulled in several directions. Joe, what's the hardest thing about you right now? So you can use that in many different ways. Kind of light, but you never know what's going to come out of there. Sometimes we notice that our kids are doing things that are not in their character. So a sentence starter might be, I've noticed that you have been sleeping later in the morning and spending more time alone. I'm concerned and would like to discuss this. When is a good time? So they may very well go, never, I don't want to talk to you. That's okay. That's going to happen. But they've now heard that you see that they're sleeping later in the morning, that they're spending more time alone. They've seen that you noticed them, and they know that you want to discuss it. Whatever the response is, let it be. You're going to be able to come to it at another time. Another one, we need to be vulnerable and open up about our mistakes, right? I've felt lonely and depressed at times in my life. I've wondered if you have experienced that sometimes too. It was hard for me to talk with grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle. I needed to talk with a therapist. Is it hard for you to talk with me about those feelings? You can use any of that or all of that, depending on how you may think they can hear each one of those.
So if you haven't done mindfulness and you're looking to get started, or maybe you've dabbled in it a little bit, here are some ideas for how you can begin a practice. We are going to do a short body scan meditation right now. If you're in a place where you can close your eyes and, sort of be comfortable, you can just be seated or lying down, whatever is comfortable for you, or you can just listen. I'm going to take you through a short body scan just to give you an example of what it feels like. So begin by bringing your attention into your body. You can close your eyes if that's comfortable for you, or if you want to leave them open, you can just kind of glance down at your lap. You can notice your body seated, wherever you're seated, feeling the weight of your body on the chair or on the floor. Let's start by taking a few deep cleansing breaths. So as you breathe in through your nose, and then exhale through your mouth. And just continue to take 2 more deep breaths like that. As you take your last deep breath, bring in more oxygen, enlivening your body. And as you exhale, have a sense of relaxing more deeply. Notice your feet on the floor. Notice the sensations of your feet touching the floor, the weight, pressure, any vibration, heat or coolness. Notice your legs against the chair, pressure, pulsing, heaviness or lightness. Notice your back against the chair. Now bring your attention to your stomach area. And notice if your stomach is tense or tight. And if so, just let it soften and take a nice deep breath. Notice your hands. Are your hands tense or tight? See if you can allow them to soften. Notice your arms. Feel any sensation in your arms. And let your shoulders be soft. Notice your neck. Let it be soft and relax. Soften your jaw. And let your face and your facial muscles be soft. Then notice your whole body. Scan from your feet all the way up to the top of your head. And take one more deep breath in. And as you exhale, see if you can let go of any last tension that might be hanging on. And when you feel ready, you can open your eyes.